Is it possible for men to get pregnant? Even in America's most progressive circles, the general consensus seems to be no. However, DannyTheTransDad would beg to differ. Danny, along with many other trans fathers, had adopted the title of a seahorse dad, since for seahorses, it is the male rather than the female who carries around the developing babies in his pouch and eventually gives birth to them. 5 months later, Danny gave birth to a beautiful baby human named Wilder. I say human because according to Danny, Wilder uses gender-neutral pronouns. In fact, Danny also disliked terms like good girl or good boy because in Danny's opinion, Wilder wasn't old enough to decide her gender yet. Before we hear Wilder's story, however, we need to learn a little more about Danny himself. Danny had always known he was trans, but didn't begin his transition from a woman to a non-binary birther until he was around 25. Prior to online fame, Danny worked as a nanny, or in his words, a Manny. Danny the Manny. Danny seemed to love his career and began posting on social media to share his love of nannying with the world. However, despite having over a decade of experience working as a nanny, Danny seemed to be a pretty lousy one. I'm in a pretty small tight-knit nanny group, and he dated a nanny in said group. It ended horribly. That all by itself was just the whole mess. He allegedly got kicked from a well-known nanny agency due to a breach of contract for posting his nanny kids on his very public social media. In addition to this, Danny also made a post in one of the larger nanny groups where he said people should come find him. While Danny is perfectly welcome to dox himself if he so desires, it's a bit of a different story when children, who are not even his own, are involved. Most nanny contracts have a very standard clause about not posting updates to social media about plans for the day, whereabouts of the children, etc. And I believe he worked for some pretty high-profile families, so it's taken even more seriously in that case. At the end of the day, being fired for potentially endangering children didn't matter all that much to Danny, as on June 21st, 2020, Danny would make a shocking announcement to the world. He was pregnant. Danny revealed that although he knew the sex of the baby, he did not know the baby's gender, but that he would let everyone know in around 4 or 5 years once the baby had decided. What he did decide, however, was that his baby would use they/them pronouns.
This is probably the number one asked question. Are you having a boy or are you having a girl? Yes, I know the assigned sex of my baby. I don't know the gender of my baby though, only my baby does.
At this point, Danny was only a few months pregnant, but had already created some sort of twisted wish list of traits that he hoped his child would be born with. Danny was supposedly obsessed with, quote, Down's kids, and used to send pics of Down's kids all the time when dating his ex, saying, I can't wait till we adopt one. Don't just take his ex's word for it though, take Danny's. Now to manifest a healthy baby with Down syndrome, who thinks I can make magic happen? I'm secretly hoping for my very own miracle with an extra chromosome. Manifesting a baby with Down syndrome wasn't Danny's only disturbing wish, as he also seemed to fetishize the idea of having a black baby. Danny appeared to be subtly hinting that his baby's biological father was black, when in reality, Danny had no idea if his baby was black or not, because he didn't even know who the baby's other father was. More on that topic a bit later. Thankfully, the rest of Danny's pregnancy went well, and on November 28, 2020, Wilder Wakefield was born. According to Danny, Wilder's gender was yet to be determined, but that their sex was female. Danny had recorded the entire process, posting photos and videos online for the entire world to see. Although this footage clearly showed his love for Wilder, many people were beginning to notice that Danny didn't really have a private life, as he shared everything online. Instagram had even removed some of Danny's posts for alleged nudity. While Danny is a grown man and can do as he pleases, it was a bit ironic that Danny was so against gendering his infant because the baby quote-unquote didn't know their gender yet, but was perfectly okay with pointing a camera 24/7 on the same baby who also couldn't consent to being filmed yet. Not to mention, these cameras were shoved in Wilder's face the literal second they were born. In the weeks and months that followed, Danny and Wilder's health remained in good standing. However, Danny's pockets were running dry. After all, children are quite expensive, and Danny was a single parent. Danny reached out to his followers for donations to cover expenses like rent and Wilder's preschool tuition. Luckily for Danny, he seemed to have quite a lot of supporters. Danny also created an Amazon wishlist for items he was, quote, in need of, including a Yeti cooler for traveling with Wilder's donor milk. Danny was asking for quite a lot from his followers, especially because he had nothing to offer in return. Despite this, Danny had an unwarranted sense of entitlement when his community offered him their advice. Walmart has an electric cooler that you can plug into your car. That's great. I'm not looking for an electric cooler I can plug into my car. It would keep the milk frozen, but okay, my bad. A different user informed Danny of a better alternative to the Yeti. I know you're not looking for advice, but I actually prefer my RTI seed cooler over Yeti, and it's a lot cheaper. That's great. Have you traveled 14 plus hours with frozen breast milk that you need to keep frozen with an RTIC? Because I'm not just looking for recreational purposes or other recommendations. Not breast milk, no, but it's kept ice cream and chicken frozen for 2 days. Of course, Danny had no response to any of these very legitimate suggestions. Despite these items being supposed essentials for Wilder, Danny seemed to be more obsessed with luxury brands rather than functionality. This was made apparent when he bid on a new baby carrier, despite already owning an entire collection. He had $210 to bid on a carrier he doesn't need, but he went on his IG Live yesterday asking for people to donate money to buy bath toys for his baby, since he would be off from work for 2 weeks and couldn't afford any, and included his address to send them. I mean, bath toys can be found in the Dollar Tree. I think his priorities are all wrong, but not my business or problem. To put things into perspective, if Danny had used the $210 from the baby carrier bid at Dollar Tree instead, he could have purchased 168 bath toys. To be fair, Danny might have wanted a bigger variety of toys. He was limited to only the ducks or frogs, since dolls might unfairly influence the baby's gender. Danny mishandling his followers' money wasn't a one-time incident either. Remember when I said Danny already had a collection of baby carriers? Well, he had $700 worth of carriers for sale, not even including carriers he actually used. Despite owning so many carriers, when realistically, he only needed one, Danny was DSO, or desperately in search of, a Sakura Bloom Sedona on Bahima with leather leopard straps, which retailed for $320. At this point, Danny's followers were slowly catching on to his grifts. You need to pay rent by selling off old items, but you need to fund a DSO? Thought the same, and this is why it's best to leave out the sob stories, like the rules say. Some of Danny's other financial offerings would make even Bernie Madoff proud. Hey friends, I have a super unique business/partnership opportunity for someone interested in making some quick cash and who has good enough credit/the ability to co-sign on a home loan in Portland, and also interested in helping the next generation of queers secure home ownership. I don't want to go into too much detail, but if you're interested in hearing more, shoot me a message. It's a real good opportunity. I'll let you be the judge on the feasibility of Danny's business opportunity, but before you invest, just a heads up. In the past, Danny hasn't been known to be the most truthful guy out there. On his personal blog, Danny wrote that when he was 6 months pregnant, he did the footwork necessary and found Wilder's sperm donor, who, as he hinted to earlier, was supposedly black. Danny stated, "I'll speak more to this when I'm ready," in a separate post. So what did this post say exactly? Some things that I often get asked are, how long did it take you to conceive Wilder? And how did you choose Wilder's donor? For almost a year, I spent dodging questions about how Wilder was conceived out of shame. You see, I wasn't trying to conceive, nor do I know who Wilder's donor is. Notice the language Danny uses here. He refers to Wilder's biological father as the donor in order to degrade the father to solely his sperm. In the end, Danny admitted that Wilder was likely conceived during a one-night stand while he was on meth. I was 1 week shy of celebrating a year sober from meth, something I hadn't been able to put together in my 4 years of struggling to get sober. And then it happened, a 2-day relapse in my meth and sex addiction. But this one was different. I had never relapsed on meth for just 2 days. It had always led to months. But this time, I stopped, and I couldn't understand how at the time, but now I realize why. That 2-day relapse at the beginning of 2020 changed my life forever. Thankfully, Wilder seemed to be born with no health complications, despite the heightened risk of birth defects that come with methamphetamine use. Although there were no issues with Wilder's birth, Danny's story was full of them. Danny's post, where he admitted that he had no idea who Wilder's biological father is, was posted on November 28, 2021. On December 20th of the same year, Danny had posted the lie about finding Wilder's sperm donor, despite already mentioning that the donor didn't actually exist. At this point, Danny couldn't even keep up with his own lies anymore. Let's fast forward a few years, where thanks to his TikTok, Danny had become somewhat infamous online. Danny was invited on Truly's 10 million subscriber YouTube channel to discuss his choice to raise Wilder as gender neutral.
A lot of people claim that I'm confusing my child by raising them in a gender neutral way. I have hundreds of comments that say, poor child. CPS should remove that child. And people say ignore it, but there's only so much you can ignore. So right now we're in Wilder's playroom. One of the things that felt really important to me when I was creating this room was that it be as gender neutral as possible. It's not a pink or a blue nursery. It's a room for Wilder. We've got trucks, we've got dinosaurs, we've got Barbies, we've got dolls, we've got books about being your truest self.
Danny reiterated the fact that he had made this choice before Wilder was even born.
I decided to raise Wilder as gender neutral and to practice gender creative parenting really from the beginning, before Wilder was even born. I've seen how our gendered stereotypes impact children and their experience in the world, and I didn't want that to happen for Wilder. Kids at school ask Wilder, are you a boy or a girl? And Wilder says, I'm Wilder. And that's it, then they go back to playing.
Danny even suggested that his critics were simply uneducated on the topic.
What would you say to people who think that you are confusing Wilder?
I think a lot of people who claim that I'm confusing my child by raising them in a gender neutral way are people who just haven't had the education or experience themselves to understand why I'm doing this or how gendered stereotypes impact kids. The things that I struggled with the most as a child, as a youth, were society's expectations that had been placed upon me.
Later in the video, Danny gives us a tour of the farm he lives on, introducing us to his collection of animals, including a particularly unique hen.
We have 3 cats, we've got 2 parrots, we've got pigs and chickens and alpacas and goats. This is Bouncer. Bouncer's a hen, but sometimes what happens is hens will take on rooster-like characteristics if there aren't any roosters around. And so Bouncer's our non-binary chicken who decided to start crowing at 4 a.m. Getting emotional talking about it. It felt really special to get this non-binary chicken as a trans non-binary person.
Though Danny was emotionally attached to Bouncer, he didn't seem to show the same compassion for his other animals. A Reddit user by the name of AlternativeComb314 outlined Danny's history with animals on his farm. Dogs. Brooklyn. Euthanized for behavior after Danny locked Brooklyn up in a small room for months. Jersey. Euthanized for age/illness. Wonder. Rehomed. Mama dog Cassie. Removed from his care by local rescue. 2 litters of dogs. Removed from his care by local rescue after he exposed them all to parvo, a highly contagious and potentially deadly canine virus. Cats. Savannah. Gone with no explanation. Callie. Black cat that Danny got for Wilder as a kitten. Hasn't been seen in a while, but Danny has talked extensively about rehoming. Georgie. White cat that Danny got for Wilder as a kitten. Still lives with Danny. It should be noted that Danny did not spay or neuter Georgie or Ollie, who were litter mates, until he panicked that they had mated and thought Callie was pregnant. He reached out to a rescue who helped him by spaying and neutering them. This is the same rescue he later attacked when he blundered the dog fostering fiasco. Margot. Junebugs, his former housemate, cat, is currently living with Danny. We hope Margot stays safe, considering Danny's recent passive-aggressive comments about Junebug. Horse. Rowan. Removed from his care when he stopped paying boarding and stopped taking care of him. Goats. Dottie. Mysteriously died. Lulu. Rehomed. Harwin. Rehomed. Winnie. Rehomed. Stella. Died less than 24 hours after he rehomed her. Tilly. 2-week-old baby goat living indoors and sleeping in bed with Danny and Wilder. Birds. Salem. His neighbor's pet crow that he pretended was a wild crow he had befriended. When it came out he was lying, Salem mysteriously disappeared. Miko. Rehomed. Bouncer. The non-binary chicken shown earlier. Sparkles. A chicken he let Wilder take home as a chick from a feed store on a whim. Currently lives indoors. Zorro. A parrot that is a long-term foster currently living with him / possibly recently rehomed. Little Boy Blue. bird he adopted from his sister but has not talked about or shown in a while, so it is unclear if he is still there. Bagel, allegedly unalived by a coyote. There was also Maxie and Mo, a rare gay pigeon couple that Danny was in the process of planning a fabulous gay wedding for. In addition to his appearances on YouTube shows, Danny opened up about his mental health struggles in an interview with Style Like You.
But those feelings of anxiety and depression kept getting worse, and other things started happening. Around 11 months is when the intrusive thoughts really started creeping in.
You were having thoughts about harming.
Yeah, so I was having intrusive thoughts about harming my child. This person who I love more than anything in the entire world. How could I be having those thoughts about this person who I've never loved anything or anyone more than this being?
Thankfully, Danny was able to get the help he needed.
And I reached out to a friend, thank goodness. And so she came and got me, and I went to the hospital. And I received diagnosis and medication for postpartum psychosis and depression, as well as ADHD.
We can only hope that this experience was a huge wake-up call for Danny, whose past includes being an unethical nanny, a Down syndrome and race fetishizer, a manipulative grifter, a pathological liar, an irresponsible animal caretaker, and most importantly, a questionable father. For Wilder's sake, let's hope that Danny continues to get the help he so desperately needs.